You know, the digital divide goes back to the 1990s. It goes back to a time when I was Assistant Secretary of Commerce. The internet had 15 million people, and most people in America had no idea what the internet was. And we were noticing early on that there were some people who were very active in gaining access to technology and some who weren't. So we did, with the Census Bureau back in the 1990s, a empirical study, the first empirical study of who was online and who wasn't online. Let's fast forward to 25 years, and we can see that a lot of things haven't changed. In the 1990s, the folks who weren't on, as Joni noted, disproportionately were rural, they were disproportionately poor, they're disproportionately ethnic minorities, they were disproportionately less educated, less white collar, and they were disproportionately immigrant.
I think what Larry said about this is not a new issue is really important. And we all say digital divide. Larry was the person who coined the phrase digital divide. So we've been talking about this and studying this for quite some time now. And I've been engaged in the last 10 years. And I think what brought this into sharp relief was the obviousness. You can't hide from it during the pandemic. Everybody who could was working from home, and schools, every child needed to learn virtually. And so it's just some number. It became very, very human.
As Larry shared and illustrated, the adoption levels in Indianapolis, a very urban area, is just over 40%. And so when you ask whether this is a rural issue or an urban issue, I think it's a really, really mixed bag. I think a lot of people want to make urban an adoption issue only and access a rural issue only, but I think access is mostly a rural issue, but adoption is both an urban and rural issue. So 9 out of 10 Hoosiers have access to internet infrastructure, and our adoption rate is closer to 60 or 70%, and in some communities 30 and 40%. And so how do we develop policies? The Indiana General Assembly has been focused almost exclusively on access issues for the last decade. And just since we've started facing pandemic issues, I think there is a willingness and an understanding of the adoption issues and how do we really help people subscribe.
Just now, somebody forwarded to me last week, it was a doctor's office that was promoting the EBB. It's got a diverse client base, and there'd be people who qualify. And you think about how we should view this, not as it's a bolt-on, somewhere off here technology, but in the end, if it's this important, then it has to be woven into everything that we're thinking about. It's workforce development, it's healthcare, it's banking, it's education, and it's work. And in all of those intersections are opportunities for us to, get the increments over the line.
And I think the digital literacy part of how we engage, we've all talked about how telemedicine has been available, but the building of the trust and the ability to use the platforms and how we speak about that and how we train generations to use that infrastructure is really important as well.
We need a robust rethinking of what being connected in a digital age means. And the good news is this pandemic has given all of us the incentive to think those thoughts and to drive those kinds of outcomes.
Yeah, Larry, and that's a really important point. And I was just thinking back to something you said earlier about that broadband map, because I think we can all visualize that map and you see those places where it's not. And what we're thinking, I think a lot of people falling into this is we just want to fill in that map, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. And, if I could snap my fingers and make that whole map the same color, it wouldn't solve the problems we're talking about here. I mean, it would help with it, right? But the digital divide would still exist in rural and urban parts of this country.
You still have a lot of poor people in both rural America and urban America who don't have broadband because they simply can't afford it, even if we had access. And I think we need to invest the money in the same way we did electricity, the same way we did telephones. We need to invest the money as a nation. We all benefit and we're all connected.